Welcome back to the Progress Over Perfection podcast, where we talk to real people about real things involving weight loss, nutrition, fitness, and mindset. I'm your host, Ryan Johnson, and the show is produced by Josh Toller. If you haven't already, go ahead and add us wherever you listen to your podcasts, or subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get weekly updates to the show. If you're interested in being a caller on the show, check out the link in the description. Hey, so today we've got some special guests joining me to talk about health, fitness, as well as some aspects of running a business. But before that, we're going to take a quick moment for a word from today's sponsor. We'd like to thank today's sponsor, Premier Protein. If you've been following my journey for a while, you know how important it is for me to find simple and effective ways to get my protein in, especially with my busy lifestyle. That's where Premier Protein comes in. This isn't just any protein shake, it's been a game changer for me. I usually break my fast with one of these. Why? Well, it's packed with 30 grams of protein and it's low in sugar, making it the perfect first meal of the day for me. It keeps me full, fuels my muscle, and supports my recovery after workout. Plus, the taste, they're really good. I've always been a fan of their cafe latte flavor, but they've got a variety of options to suit any taste. It's like having a treat without the guilt. And for those of you who are always on the go like me, Premier Protein shakes are super convenient. Just grab one on your way out the door and you're set. So if you're looking to support your fitness goals and need a convenient, tasty way to up your protein intake, give Premier Protein a try. Trust me, your taste buds and your muscles will thank you. And remember, it's all about progress over perfection. I did want to share a little story that happened to me at the ballpark this week, and it just got me thinking about this idea of sustainable weight loss, sometimes the pitfalls and the traps of over restriction, and how that doesn't help us to maintain our weight loss goals. So we were at the ballpark this week. My nephew was playing in a tournament game. My youngest and I went out to see him. And like I always do at the ballpark, I got some boiled peanuts because they are really good at the ballpark. That's very nostalgic for me. It's something that I look forward to, and I got that. And while we were watching the game, a Kona ice truck rolled up, and sure enough, my youngest daughter spotted it. She asked if she could get a snow cone, and absolutely, like that's a part of going to the baseball games. I was thinking back and realized it had been a while since I had one. I was in the mood for it. It was absolutely hot, and I was like, a snow cone would be great right now. I love tiger's blood. That's like my favorite flavor. So I got the snow cone. I ended up getting a small, and I actually didn't even finish the whole thing, but as I was having it, one of the things that I was thinking about was anytime I have ever lost weight in the past, something like that, I would have told myself was completely off limits, because it is literally just sugar, right? Like, yes, there's some ice, there's a little bit of water in there, but it is just sugar flavoring on the ice. The nutritional value of that is nothing. But I would tell myself that I couldn't have it because of that. The reality is, if you can fit some things like that in moderation, it's not going to derail your progress either. What's actually going to derail your progress is all of the guilt associated with having something like that, telling yourself that you're not going to eat it. And then as a result of that guilt, you're like, I shouldn't have had the snow cone. I might as well not try on everything else. Just a reminder to myself this week about fitting things like that in moderation helps you to enjoy like the process and life, and which actually allows you to stick with it. The moment you tell yourself that you're not going to have something like that ever again, it lives in your head, and it actually causes more damage than the few calories from the sugar. We need to look for those ways to fit moderation into our lives. So next up, I am super excited to have our special guest joining us again. Today's episode is a little different because I'm going to be talking with some guys that I've actually talked with in the past. I was a guest on their podcast and look forward to having them on today. I want to welcome Josh and Corey to the show. Welcome, guys.
How's it going? Hey, Ryan. Thanks for having us.
We have kind of talked before, and again, was really enjoyed getting to kind of share my second story, if you will. Be sure to check them out. They, have a podcast talking about those kind of moments in people's lives that kind of changed their trajectory. From mine, it absolutely was like losing weight and finding this idea of sustainable weight loss. But, tell me a little bit about yourselves, guys.
So a little bit about me. Grew up in a very small town in Canada in the middle of nowhere. Went to school for broadcasting, worked in journalism a little bit. Didn't really love journalism, so I went to film school. That's where I met Corey. We both worked in the film industry a little bit before it collapsed in Canada in 2008, 2009. And then we both kind of went our separate ways. Corey, I'll let you tell your story after. But for me, I ended up rekindling my love with broadcasting eventually, which led us to this podcast. But I also am a writer, so I freelance write. And I also have written one book, and I got another one on the way later this year. I won't put a date on it because I always end up pushing it back. So that's a little bit about me. And then I've got a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful daughters, so I'm very blessed.
You know, I met my wife, it was back in like 2002, and then we ended up going to university together. I was thinking about going through to be a teacher, which probably wouldn't have been the best bet for me. And partway through, I finished my BA, but partway through, I decided to go to film school, where Josh said that's where I met him. And it was probably kind of the best decision I ever made for myself, because it fit me the most. Tried working in the industry for a bit in Toronto. That wasn't for me. And then I ended up moving back home, worked in customer service for a while in the corporate world. I was working at some banks, which was just terrible for me mentally. Was trying to do the thing on the side, and eventually I got into my own business, and I do video production full time now. And actually, Josh and I got back to hanging out. I shot his wedding. Hadn't seen him for like 10 years, and then shot his wedding.
So he reached out to you? You reached out to him for that?
It was kind of a Facebook thing. He put out on Facebook that he was looking for a videographer, and I commented. I was like, dude, I'll shoot your wedding. So I drove 600 kilometers to shoot his wedding, and we've been back best friends ever since, and now we do this podcast together.
I love it. I love the digital space. And again, y'all knew each other beforehand, but the opportunity to connect, like even us, like the fact that we were able to reach out, meet, do everything digitally, and then build a connection. So I love that. What's on your mind, Josh? Like, what's going on with you? I know just getting back off of a little bit of an injury yourself.
Yeah, I'm still recovering from surgery, which has been quite the journey. So I had hip surgery on March 5th. My first of a couple of hip surgeries that I have to have. So that was really what spawned the whole podcast. Was I had a hip injury just about 3 years ago. And I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. I couldn't walk at all. It was during the height of the pandemic, which was a little different in Canada than it was for a lot of people in the States. So I was only allowed one visitor for an hour a day for most of my stay, and that was my wife. So mentally, I was going through a very difficult time. And I would actually talk to Corey on the phone quite often, and that was where we sort of spawned the whole idea for our podcast. Second Story was out of that. So anyways, had surgery in March. It's been quite the recovery. A lot of complications with like medication and stuff like that, which has been interesting to deal with because I don't particularly like taking medication. And it's not really something that people think about because everybody does it, but that's really been a bit of an eye-opener for me and for Corey as well when we've talked about it. It's been kind of a scary thing. Outside of that, my recovery's actually been great. Like my physio's great. I'm back in the gym 5 days a week. I'm lifting weights. The only thing I can't do is I can't do lunges yet. My physiotherapist is like, if you start lunging, I'm going to be really upset. He's like, because you're going to end up needing surgery again. So I haven't done a lunge yet. Probably won't for a few more weeks. But other than that,
I would be
I'm great.
okay if the doctors told me that I couldn't lunge. I'd be like, done. Like you don't have to twist my arm.
No problem. I hate lunging.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No lower body leg exercises. I'm devastated.
Yeah. Oh, I can't do cardio? That's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Oh, I can do cardio. Just I do the bike. I can't run. I don't think I'll ever run again, to be honest. Like other than chasing people around or maybe playing baseball. But yeah, I can't run on concrete.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
may have run 50 or 60 miles in the 8 years since I've been out of the Army, which was only like 3 weeks worth of running when I was in the Army.
That's crazy.
Nuts. Yeah. Yeah, my hips wouldn't tolerate that kind of thing.
Initially, when we had started talking, we had reached out because we are doing like a little bit of the call-in style, but I know you did have something a question that you were thinking about, Josh. What was on your mind in regards to like your own health and fitness and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably ask a lot of different questions, but as far as like recovery and things like that, one of the things that I've struggled with is like I can't necessarily get around the way I used to and eat the way I was, say, before I got hurt. But I've been trying to stick to a diet and things like that. What would you recommend as far as like balancing somebody who's injured, who's dealing with a serious injury and can't necessarily get out and get their own things Because there are a lot of people who end up isolated, or if they're older, they don't have somebody to necessarily go out and get them food. What would you recommend to somebody who just can't get around to do those things, but still wants to eat healthy and maintain a good balance?
One of the things that I think about, and I'll do this with some coaching clients as well, that are, it's not always an injury. Sometimes it's just sickness. But one of the things that is important, again, some of this is philosophical, some of it's tactical, but we'll start on the philosophical level. And that is one of the things that does the most damage to our progress when we have a setback is thinking that because we can't do maybe what is ideal or what we could do in light of our injury, we do nothing, right? So it's like, I can't do some things, so I might as well not do anything. So that's the first thing I'd say. Everything's going to be a little different depending on like what your restrictions are, nutrition, but find those things that you can do and do those. No, it may not be optimal, but it's better than what we usually default to, which is like, I can't do it all, I might as well do nothing. So that's like the philosophical part. And then from the tactical side, like I would say align what you are doing with what your overall goals are. I think that's something we struggle with as well, is the goal in recovery is to get back to baseline. It may not be to exceed that, right? So like do things that will help you recover faster if it is like an injury, which sometimes it is. Going to physical therapy and doing exercises that seem so mundane. It's like, why am I even doing this? Well, you're doing that to get you back to baseline, if that makes sense.
It's funny you say that. I'll comment on that just from my own, having gone through it. So the day I had my surgery, they wake me up and I was almost passing out afterwards. Like you can't pass out if you're going to leave the hospital. So they're like, okay, we need to get your sugars up. So they gave me a ginger ale, and I don't typically drink ginger ale. It's very sugary. But I had to get my sugars up. So they give it to me, and I'm like, ooh, that was good. And on the way home, I was like to my wife, I'm like, can we get some ginger ale? People started bringing treats to the house because they're like, oh, Josh is hurt. We'll bring him donuts. We'll bring a cake. We'll bring like Popeye's chicken and all this stuff. And I definitely indulged for the first couple days. And then I got like 3 or 4 days into it, and I was like, well, I already did this. What's a little bit more? I might as well have that ginger ale today. And, I'll have a little bit of Skittles. I'll have a little bit of chips. And by about the 5th day, I started actually feeling bad, like physically. And I was like, oh, this is what Ryan was talking about on our podcast when he said this is what he would do, all or nothing. Like, I'm already going into a hole. I'll just dig it a little deeper. And I stopped myself on about the 5th day, and I'm like, I'm going to put on 20 or 30 pounds if I keep this up for my entire recovery of like 8 weeks. So I just like, boom, done, cut it off, and just went back to eating my normal, relatively healthy diet. Even though I wasn't training or like I wasn't going to be putting on muscle or anything like that. I was like, I have to stay like, where's my camera? If I have a baseline, I got to stay pretty close to it. Otherwise, I'm going to be digging from like way down here and trying to just dig my way back up. So to your point, I absolutely understand that as somebody who just went through recovery, and it's a hard thing to stop yourself and do.
So I have a shoulder injury. I've had this shoulder issue for, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years, close to that. And I've tried everything: chiro, acupuncture, physio, osteo, massage, done everything. Probably the only thing I haven't done actually is gone to a doctor about it, which maybe I should do that. The thing that you were saying about just trying to do something. So I've been trying to do the exercise that don't irritate it, right? And like you said, doing a lot of stretches and things like that. Now, the best thing I've done is I've gone to a personal trainer who's specialized in shoulder injuries. So he's shown me like to take it back because I thought, going 4 or 5 days a week and lifting weights and everything was going to help. It's just been further injuring me. I definitely agree with that you got to do something, but you got to do the right things, take it back to the basics.
No, I love that. And I think that's one of the things, like we talked about it a little bit on y'all's podcast about like things that have changed trajectory. And I think one of the things that I have really, and maybe it's because I'm maturing and I know that time's running out. No, I'm still super young. I got lots of time, barring any accidents. But one of the things that I have done is like looking to the experts and understanding if I want to do this faster. Sometimes it is like listening to the experts, like when it comes to whether it was starting the YouTube channel or like doing what I'm doing with online coaching, like going to that expert and listening to them is going to save you that time. That's what they bring to the table versus trying to just figure it out yourself.
Yeah, it's like a shortcut. We kind of did that with you, right? When we had you on our show, we were trying to build our YouTube channel. We had 36 followers at the time that you came on our show. And we picked your brain for like, I don't know, it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours after we had recorded the show where you were gracious enough to talk to us. And you gave us a lot of really good advice on how to build our YouTube out. And we took a lot of that to heart and had some serious conversations about like, what is our brand? What's the theme we want to have in the show? Once we discovered what we actually wanted to be, it became a lot easier. And you sort of gave us like a shortcut. It was almost like skipping levels in a video game. Like we're on level 1 and you're like, well, here's a pass to go to level 3. We're like, oh, let's take that. And now I feel like we're at level 3 in our podcast doing it. And I don't think we would have got there without meeting you and actually like listening to your advice and taking it to heart.
Man, I really appreciate that. And again, I think outside of weight loss, and I think I love content creation. I love this. And I think that's one of the reasons that I like talking about it. And there's a lot of parallels between what I applied in my weight loss journey. I have absolutely applied to other areas of my life. Things like sustainability, incremental progress, all those kinds of stuff, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the little things add up, right?
For sure.
Piece by piece.
I don't know. Have you listened to the recent Modern Wisdom with Tim Ferriss?
I saw some clips on it. I need to watch it.
It's a really good episode. There's a lot of good stuff about how like doing, it kind of goes back to Atomic Habits, which I know you love and Corey and I both love as well. But it's the idea of like building all these little things into your life, like just for your mental health, for your career, for all these different parts. Like even something as simple as meeting your friends, scheduling in, a month in advance. I'm going to meet my friends every month for dinner, or I'm going to do this weekly as like a mental health break, because like socializing ourselves is super important. So working those things into your life, just incrementally, like you don't have to meet your friends every day, but just being able to like go out with your buddies once a month is so good for especially your mental health. And it's such an incremental change that, especially men. Yeah, absolutely. But that's such a small thing. I've tried to do that now twice a month, but I started with once. Like I'm just going to see my buddies once a month, which is hard when you have kids. Ryan,
you're saying that now. And I'm thinking like, I need to do I need to do that. I need to schedule. I've been driving around with the golf clubs in the back of my car since September. Since my birthday, I'm like, I'm going to play golf at some point. I'm not kidding. Since September, they've been in the back of my car. I haven't played since then, but it's because I'm not scheduling it. I need to I got plenty of people.
Yeah. I probably played twice in 13 years. My oldest is 13 years old. So
yeah. So you haven't played golf since you were kids. Yeah. You know what though? It's such a simple change in life. Like just schedule. And he talks about scheduling trips. He schedules trips every year with his friends. Now, not everybody can do. I couldn't schedule multiple trips without my kids. Maybe one, but even just to schedule one a year, like in January, reach out to your friends, be like, all right, guys, when are we taking a trip together this year for a weekend or what have you? But those little breaks, like he talks about this, Tim Ferriss does, that mental lead up where you're excited about something and you're in a WhatsApp group and you're chatting with your friends, you're having a great time just conversing with people. Then you get to go on the trip and you have that great time where you make memories, you do all those things, and then you leave the trip and you have those memories. And all that stems from just this little change that you made at the start of the year where you just took the time to be like, block this weekend off. Boom. That's our weekend. And I'm trying to do it with my wife. My wife and I have a couple trips this year planned, just us, which we never would do in other years. And for us, like that's huge. I love that time away with my wife. I mean, I love my kids too, but just getting away with my wife and doing that is incredibly good for both of us. And it's a small change, but it makes huge waves in your life.
I actually fell victim to, if anybody's on TikTok, this thing made the rounds. See, for those watching or listening to the podcast, you don't get to see it, but this was all over TikTok. It was like the big calendar. So we did that and blocked out our vacations, and Karen and I are doing an anniversary thing next week.
I love that.
No, I love that. So Corey, what's on your mind, man? I know you and I have kind of similar stories in that, the corporate burnout, like I need to do something different. What's on your mind, man?
So it's funny because like my whole thing was, if I start a business, everything's going to be good in my life. And of course, as you know, there's challenges to that too. But the biggest challenge that I've had in my business, because I incorporated about 7 years ago. The biggest challenge I've come across is that I actually became complacent over the last couple years, where it was like, I'll just take what comes to me, and putting out these videos that I didn't care that much about. Like, I'd do the odd one that I was like super excited about, but complacency in business can be a bit of a killer. So I've been realizing that over the last little while here, and I've been making changes to try to not be in that complacent zone anymore, reaching out to, like, I don't know, things that are outside of my comfort zone, and taking risks on things. And all of a sudden I'm like feeling reinvigorated with everything in my business. I'm like, yeah, let's get going on this thing. It's almost like starting anew.
Man, I love that. And as you were saying that, I felt like you've been inside of my head, because I absolutely feel that way.
Well, we went through the same thing, right? Like, yeah.
I know. And I think one of the things that I have thought about, that makes me think about, with both regards to my business and my health and fitness, talk about like parallels between the two. I have now been in business for myself for a little more than a year and a half now, doing the online coaching, doing content creation full time. And I have felt kind of similar over these last 4 or 5 months that, took a lot to get it off the ground, figuring it out for the first, 6 months. And then for 6 months, haven't changed much. But I'm at a point now where it's like, I need something else to kind of respur that. And it's similar in my weight loss, in that I lost 50 pounds. I've maintained that for the last, 3 years, which is awesome in and of itself. But if I want to move forward, I need to find that next little mini goal. So that's something I've been thinking about, with both in regards to my business and my fitness, which is part of the reason why I started the podcast, right? Like, it's one of those like next little thing to focus on. I think I need to find that still on the fitness side of things, like whether it's signing up. I do have a half marathon coming up in November. So training for that half marathon is going to be that like next thing, so that it doesn't like stagnate, those mini goals, right? Like, obviously we want to build a business that's long-term, but the only way that we can do long-term is stay engaged in those periods of in between.
What kind of things are you doing, Ryan, to make that, to keep that fresh?
Part of what you said about reaching out of your comfort zone rang true. For example, like doing this podcast, and I know part of the reason that got me here was just taking action, right? Like, just take action and then figure it out. So I think the thing to do, like, what is the practical step, is think about something that is a little outside of your range or comfort zone, set your intention to that, and then just take actions to make it happen. So you got to spend a little bit of time ideating and thinking of like, where could I go next? But then once you think of anything, just start taking action. I heard that phrase, and I can't remember where it was, but essentially, what is the best way to do something? And the answer is any of them, right? Because you could take 3 different paths, and the answer is all of the paths will get you somewhere where you want to be. So just like pick one and go, and that's going to do more good than spending too much time deliberating.
That's good advice.
It wasn't me. I'm not that smart. I took it from somebody else.
Hey, we take everything from other people, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Quentin Tarantino. He only steals from the best to make his movies. I think he even admits that when he talks about his movies. I was gonna say, like, I think the 3 of us. I'm assuming here, but I know I'm this way. But I think the 3 of us, we have all chased goals and hit these goals. And I remember something back to my dad talking about this when I was a kid. My dad said, if you can goal chase all you want, but it'll never bring you happiness when you get there. He's like, you got to enjoy the journey that you're on. And if you don't enjoy it, then you got to find a different journey. And I think that once you reach a goal, the journey's it's not necessarily over. It's just sort of it's not as big a part of your life. And there is a real difficult transition from one journey to like find the next one. And I know when I released my book, I talked to Corey about this. I think I've said it on our podcast too. When I released our book, it went out. It did very well. Like, I sold way more than I thought I would. And then I had this massive lull for like a year where I was like, okay, what's next? Like, what do I do now? What's my next journey? And it was so hard to pivot and find the next one. And ultimately, this podcast was our next journey, or my next journey.
It's mine too.
And it was hard to find it, but you almost... Yeah, as you're like on these journeys, if you really enjoy them, like I do enjoy the journeys that I'm on, you almost need to look down the line and be like, okay, when this one's done, or when I, get to a point where I can slow down on this, what's my pivot? Like, what's my pivot to my next one? Because I know I'm somebody who enjoys these things, and I'm going to need that in my life. Otherwise, I become complacent, like Corey was talking about. And my dad always told me, like, if you're complacent in something, you need to find something else. Like, if you're complacent at work, it's probably too easy. You're not challenging yourself. That's how you get stuck. And that's how the term, like, dead-end job comes, is that people get complacent. Maybe their job's brainless or it's easy or something like that. So it is very easy to get stuck in place. And it's almost like working out, Ryan, back to everything you say. Like, if you reach a fitness goal, there are some people who will reach that goal, and I'm one of these. Like, say I wanted abs. Like, okay, I got abs for the summer. And then in the fall, I'm eating donuts and Doritos and stuff like that. Because I'm like, well, I look great all summer. I can look like, I'm going to look terrible all winter. No one's going to see me with my shirt off. So that's something I've had to do, is really look, okay, what's my next journey going to be? And it's a hard thing to do because you don't always necessarily know what you want right away. So you got to think about it for a long time.
I think sometimes giving yourself a little bit of grace and understanding, like, you are looking, the biggest thing is don't get down on yourself and don't go backwards, right? Like, don't use, I'm in a place where I'm looking for my next one, to say I'm going to give up everything that I've done up to this point. Mm-hmm. Well, good stuff, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on today. Go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me. I have a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's all author Josh Cybulski. My last name is spelled Cybulski. And as far as the show goes, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube,
Spotify.
I think we're on Facebook too. Second Story Pod. Yeah, you can find us everywhere you find a podcast, but Second Story Podcast or Second Story, depending on what platform you're on. And Corey?
Yeah, for myself, you can find me, my business account, Instagram, all that is frameworks_media. So you can go check out some of that stuff. And then, as Josh said, our Instagram handle and everything is at Second Story Pod. Come check out some of our shows. I think we're up to 15.
Good stuff. Well, again, I love talking with you guys. And I think, again, kind of that intersection between fitness, business, creation, like, our lives are not individual things. Like, it's all connected. So I've really enjoyed talking with you all today.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ryan. Appreciate you having us on.
Take it easy.
Awesome.
All right. So next up, we have the portion of the show where we go to the comment section. And today's comment comes from a video where I was eating some chicken wings, talking about moderation. And I know, again, if you're looking for faults in my nutrition, you don't have to look very far. But I was eating some chicken wings and sharing that while it may not be the best option, it was a better option that night. And the comment was, "This video is so important. I'm also so tired of seeing comments on your videos about how your lifestyle isn't extreme enough for them. You indulge, create memories, do what feels right on the day, live life all while progressing. And people don't want to see that. There are plenty of channels about following strict diets that people can tune into if they'd like. For some of us, today's video is exactly what we want to see." So I really appreciate that comment. I love that, one, that you take the time to watch the videos, and two, that you took the time to comment on it. I think that is one of the things that I absolutely love about sharing my journey, and hope that it comes across, is this idea of, we spend so much time fantasizing and glorifying the weight loss journey, but we forget on the back end of the weight loss journey is what real maintenance looks like. And my vision is, as I'm still making these videos, another 5 years, like, at some point I want to show what weight loss and maintenance looks like in real time, not just the highlight reels, but taken together. You can see that you can fit in moderation some of those things. It doesn't completely derail. If you're looking for extreme, this is not the place that you're going to find it. But really appreciate that and love that that comes across in the videos. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Progress Over Perfection podcast. Remember, we're not looking to lose weight fast. We are looking to lose weight forever. If you have a question or would like to be a caller on the show, check out the link in the description and the show notes. Be sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel for clips and shorts of the show, and add us wherever you listen to your podcast. Thanks again for the support, and we will see you next week.